Ezekiel Elliott has been in the news for both the right and the wrong reasons. He's still under investigation by the NFL for domestic violence and assault allegations. And now the NFL may be dealing with a new incident involving the 21-year-old running back. Elliott was drinking a beer next to a group of people while on the roof of a Dallas bar to watch the St. Patrick's Day parade, where he pulled a woman's shirt down, exposing her bare breast. TMZ spoke with Elliott's rep, who said the woman wasn't upset and actually hung out with Zeke and a group of friends after the parade, and it was all in good fun. Stephen A., what was your reaction to this video?
My reaction was that Ezekiel Elliott was an idiot. Plain and simple. Now, I'm not calling him, Max and Molly, an idiot in terms of character assassination. That's what he is totally. I'm saying in this particular sequence, he's an absolute idiot. If the woman hung out with him or whatever and she wasn't offended by it, that's totally irrelevant. The fact of the matter is it's something that's inappropriate to do. You're not a child. You're an adult. You might be a young adult, but you're still an adult, and you're obligated to conduct yourself in a fashion that exudes responsible behavior, which clearly that wasn't. But then the reason why I would say an idiot, and maybe I should add the word flaming idiot to the equation, flaming, is because this is the same Ezekiel Elliott that complained a day after they lost, the Dallas Cowboys lost to the Green Bay Packers in the playoffs, that the investigation into whether or not he assaulted a woman was continuing to go on. He was complaining about it. He was saying that it needed to end, that a conclusion needed to be drawn. He talked about how the police had probed intensively and they found absolutely nothing. He had proclaimed there was absolutely nothing to find, proclaiming his innocence along the way. And he said that, you know what, he essentially alluded to himself being victimized by this investigation being ongoing. I sided with that view. If the police probed, intensely, and they found out absolutely nothing, and then the investigation, the NFL had investigated the matter, and they were willing to shove it aside, but then to turn around and revisit it, I thought it was a bit excessive. Get it over and done with. Probe, investigate, and then move on. And then lo and behold, he goes out and he does something like this. Now, let me say to our audience right here, please understand something. This incident that was just caught by TMZ has nothing to do with the accusations and allegations levied against Ezekiel Elliott, I believe by a former girlfriend who accused him of assaulting her. One has nothing to do with the other. It's two separate incidences as it pertains to the court of law. But in the court of public opinion, when you see him do something like that, you take a moment and you pause and say, excuse me, you that stupid, you that idiotic, you're that insensitive, you're that irresponsible. And if you could do something like that in public, what the hell are you doing in private? That's the kind of world that we're living in. It's the kind of questions ultimately people will ask. And a professional athlete in the position that Ezekiel Elliott is in, not just being a professional football player, but playing for America's team, the Dallas Cowboy, with the star in the helmet and the star at midfield and the billion-dollar playpen for the most prestigious franchise in the NFL, excuse me, and you're an elite running back at that, you're going to draw eyeballs and attentions. Everywhere you go, cameras, whether it be cell phone or literally cameras, are going to be on you. You know this, and you still do something like that? If you're not somebody who is prone to doing things that women may not want you to do, at the very least, you might be the stupidest individual of this week. And that's what this comes down to, and that's what needs to be said about Ezekiel Elliott. Max, but Molly, I definitely want to hear from you on this subject before we finish. Go ahead, Max.
Lucky for Ezekiel Elliott, the woman said that she wasn't offended by it, because imagine had she not felt that way. Now, you could maybe say, well, then Ezekiel Elliott would have known who he was with and he wouldn't have done it. Nevertheless, this is now, look, we asked this question the last time Ezekiel Elliott's name was in the news, and my thought was, no need to get bent out of shape about this. He was in front of a, the previous incidents were simply accusations. He has not been found guilty of anything. It's dragged on too long. We all kind of agreed with that, the investigation. It makes him look bad. It's not fair to him. Showing up at a weed retailer, a marijuana retailer, when he's in a state where it's legal, okay. There's nothing wrong with that exactly, although you start to add it up and it says it just doesn't look good for this guy or the franchise. And now this. it reflects on the one hand, you could argue, well, it shows innocence because he doesn't think he's doing anything wrong. But it also shows a level of immaturity or stupidity to continue to do this in public when he is a public figure. He has shown so far, at the very least, a really bad sense of judgment. And at worst, something much worse than that. He has to grow up fast. He is a public figure at the age of 21, working for a public company, whether he likes it or not. He seems to like it. It pays well and will only pay better going forward. But this kind of behavior, if you're Ezekiel Elliott, has to stop, like yesterday, literally yesterday.
Go ahead, Molly. I'd like to hear what you have to say on this before I get back to my final point. Go ahead.
I think here's where I am, and obviously I saw both of the videos, and I don't want to give him a pass from the sense that he's 21 years old, right? And what people do in their personal time, you know, isn't my business in terms of the media unless they're breaking the law, right? But as far as Ezekiel Elliott and this female and the rep saying it was in good fun, that sort of thing, she didn't seem to be bothered by the action. Me personally, would somebody do that to me? No, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen publicly. But as far as Ezekiel, I think it's just, I would lean to the words that Max used. As far as the judgment, that's what's concerning to this guy. If that's what you want to do, and you and that girl or those girls, that's what you want to do in your free time, great, go for it. That's your business. But why are you doing that publicly? Why have you not learned that? You're still under investigation, and that's where he needs to be smarter. And that brings me back to, you know, the Derek Jeter, or what my former colleague Terrell Davis used to say. Bring the party to you. Have the St. Patrick's Day party at your friend's house or at your boy's house, you know, whatever it is. But don't do that kind of thing publicly, because if you're not comfortable reading it in the headlines, it's going to be there. Everybody's TMZ now. Everybody's a reporter, and it's just not smart. And again, it's poor judgment.
I get that. I appreciate both of y'all points. But again, I think that, to be quite honest with you, both of y'all are being a little bit too light on him. I'm not going to be. Yes, you are 21 years of age. You went to Ohio State. You have been in the public eye. You understand the bubble that you're living in. By you choosing to still conduct yourself in public the way that you did, it gives off the impression that either you don't care or you think you can get away with anything. And that is not something that you want to do when you are literally being investigated by the NFL as we speak. I am not casting aspersions on the character of Ezekiel Elliott as if I know him as a person. I don't know him from a can of paint. Never even met him. What I am saying is, while he may not deserve to be judged in totality, his actions can be judged because of the bubble you're already in and how stupid you are to continue to do or to do what you did, knowing that there's still an investigation. We are weeks removed from you complaining publicly to the media that the investigation on a part of the NFL for assault needs to come to an end, proclaiming your innocence, swearing up and down that you would never do such a thing. And then in public, at a parade, in front of whole Lord knows who else, you're going to pull a woman's shirt down to expose her cleavage. You are a new fool. You are a new fool.
One thing, Max, part of that is he's clearly under the influence. So you're not making the best decisions. I don't want to speak for everybody, but when you're buzzed or you're drinking or whatever it is, so that's obviously part of the issue in terms of what's happening here. But as far as that kind of thing happening, I get where he's a fool doing this at a public parade, but if we're going to take a pool of 21-year-olds, professional athletes or not, this stuff's happening whether it's in clubs, parties, that sort of thing. So that's why I didn't want to berate the guy for the behavior.
Well, allow me to respond to that. Go ahead, Max. Go ahead. Listen, all I'm saying is this. You're 21 years old. You're 21 years of age. I am tired of people acting like that's that's a child. You're 21 years old. You're 21 years old. You've got, listen, the Jewish community, you're celebrating manhood at, what is it, age 13? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Max. You're 21 years old. When are we going to stop sitting here acting like somebody is a child at 21? No, you're not a child.
Right.
And you're being... Let me
Zeke
tell you something
had his
right
bar
now.
mitzvah 8 years ago, in other words.
Bar mitzvah. Listen, this is what I'm trying to say. What I'm saying to you is this. Excuse me, let's just say for the sake of argument that Ezekiel Elliott, they did find something with the woman that he that accused him of assault. Let's just say he was arrested and convicted of a felony. Is there some juvenile home he's going to go to? No. It's going to be prison, jail, incarceration.
Look,
that's what it would have been. You're not a child. You're not a child.
We don't even have to go to that. We don't even have to go to that hypothetical. This has dragged on for a long time. You would think if they found something in the investigation, they would have found something by now if something were there. But let's just say for a second, here's another hypothetical based on something that actually happened. That the woman who said it's no big deal said it was a big deal. What if she said, no, I didn't want him to do that? That is a big deal to me. How could he know for sure that that would be okay? Then what are we talking about right now? So,
wait, excuse me, hold on,
Max.
One thing with that. And again, this is from a distance, and I could be totally incorrect. He might not have even been drinking. But from what I saw from that video from a distance, it looked like they had some relationship. They might have met that day. I don't know. But they look pretty comfortable with each other.
Okay. That's fine. You could have a relationship with someone, and still they might not want you to do that publicly. I mean, the point is, if she were simply to say, whatever the relationship pre-existing was, if she were to say after the fact, no, I was uncomfortable with that, how would we be talking about it now? My point is that the Cowboys have an urgent situation on their hands with Ezekiel Elliott. It's not a 5-alarm blaze right now, but you don't want it to be there. Likely it's not a 5-alarm blaze, provided the investigation doesn't reveal things, you know, and that sort of thing. The point is that last week we discussed him, and my basic disposition was, no, not yet. I wouldn't say that, and I've changed my mind based on this. It's whether or not you think it's death by 1,000 paper cuts, the Cowboys have an urgent situation on their hands, and they need to get this under control.
Well, like I said, my closing comment on this subject is very, very simple. You're under investigation still. And you've put yourself in this situation, literally in the midst of another investigation.
Hold on.
I mean, think about that.
Hold on 1 second, because I got to go back to something that Max just said. So Max, when we spoke about the domestic violence allegations he's had with his ex-girlfriend and the assault allegations that the NFL's still investigating, I think previously you had thought that, you know, that there wasn't much merit to that and that they were kind of dragging it on a little bit of a witch hunt. But now that you saw him in a separate incident, now that you saw him with a girl and like exposing her breast, now you're starting to feel that maybe there was more to the sexual assault?
No.
I want to just be clear.
What I'm saying is, what I'm saying is that if Stephen A. has made the point very clearly, if this is going on with him publicly, and he is a public figure working for a public organization. And not only was there that, but there were other, not really controversies, but situations where his judgment might be questioned, and we've talked about it in this segment. Then why would he do something like this? At the very least, it shows extremely poor judgment. And I offer as evidence, had the woman simply reacted differently after the fact. No, I wasn't crazy about that even. Or no, I really didn't like that, or I was very embarrassed. Now what would we be saying about Ezekiel Elliott? And this is just the latest. He is showing extremely poor judgment for a public figure, and we all, maybe Stephen A. less than you and I, Molly, sympathize with the idea that 21-year-olds have poor judgment compared to more mature adults, and it is his fortune and misfortune that he is a famous 21-year-old, but that is in fact the case.
Extremely well said. Stephen A., I want to come back to you and spin this forward. If you're the NFL, should there be a punishment? How should they be reacting?
Like I said, I'll repeat myself again. I think there should be a punishment. The crime is stupidity, if nothing else. You're that stupid. You're that insensitive.
What's the punishment for stupidity?
Well, I think, to me, a stiff fine in this particular instance. I don't think it warrants necessarily a suspension per se, because if you go as far as a suspension, it gives indication that You're also punishing him for the allegations levied against him when there's no proof, no evidence whatsoever that he's guilty of what he has been accused of. So you don't want to sit up there and punish him just because of an accusation, because then you turn around and somebody makes an accusation against a player and they're subject to punishment on the part of the commissioner of the National Football League, and he's already got players riled up because of how he exercises his power to begin with. So you don't want to go that far. But in terms of this conduct detrimental to the league, you have this man on video conducting himself in a relatively inappropriate fashion. I do think that warrants a stiff fine, the kind of fine where he will definitely feel it in his wallet, and the kind of fine that will make him think about what put him in that situation, whether it's drinking a little bit too much alcohol, whether it's hanging out with the wrong people, whether it's sitting up there and partying a little bit too much, or whatever the case may be. You take some chunk of dollars out of his pocket, he's gonna think twice about the kind of things that he decides to engage himself with, because he's thinking that it's going to affect his wallet. You don't want it to be the kind of fine that he does not feel. You want to make sure it's the kind of fine that he actually does feel.
There are two issues here. There's the NFL and then there's the Cowboys. From the NFL's point of view, it's a branding issue. We all get that. The Cowboys also have that branding issue, but they have a further issue. They have a competitive issue. Ezekiel Elliott is the thing that makes them different. You know, I mean, that kind of running game behind that offensive line, he's especially useful to this team. It makes Dak Prescott different. It makes the Cowboys Super Bowl contenders. It made them among the favorites this year, the best team in the NFC for most of the season. So they also have that consideration. More than an NFL branding issue, it's a Cowboys, to me, competitive issue if you're that team. You want to keep this guy on the field, and based on this behavior, you wonder if he's exhibiting this kind of poor judgment consistently this early in his career. You wonder what could wind up happening. You need to get that under control if you're the Dallas Cowboys, and that's why. But besides the kind of legal issues and the issues about the young man's life and people's lives around him, we're talking about, from the Cowboys' point of view, this has become urgent.
Well, what that means is that the Cowboys should be the one to punish him instead of the National Football League. That Jerry Jones should step up and remind Ezekiel Elliott that even though the league holds dominion over us all because they're the umbrella hovering over us, you are still an employee of the Dallas Cowboys, which makes you my employee. I don't condone this kind of behavior. I don't approve of it. I will not tolerate it, and that is that. This is what Jerry Jones has a right to do. Now, some people will take pictures that they saw of Jerry Jones in the past and say, who the hell is he to judge anybody? That's nonsense. What you do is you remind that world you are the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, the most prestigious franchise in the National Football League, even though they don't deserve to be, because we all know their fan base is pathetic and they're just relying on the star and the brand as opposed to actually winning, that America's real team is the New England Patriots. But the point is, you can pretend you're still America's team, and what you can do is you can step forward and you can fine him directly if you're Jerry Jones, plus have a long talk with him and let him know this better not happen again. But that is kind of asking for too much, because considering the bevy of transgressions that sift through the Dallas Cowboys franchise like a damn virus, this is probably a blimp on a radar screen for Jerry Jones.
No, Stephen, I really like that suggestion, though, because, one second, Max, that would actually show a change of culture, because we know they've dealt with character issues before. They could kind of put their foot down and take a stance on these issues. Max, what were you going to say?
What I was saying is, by the way, on the one hand, some people out there may be listening to us and thinking, Molly, your and my reaction is a little subdued, considering there is an investigation going on for criminal behavior. There is now this, which, had she reacted differently, would be considered what? Assault or something along those lines?
Assault, for sure, yes.
Sure, right. So maybe you would, or some people may feel that, Stephen A., your reaction is hysterical because, in fact, she said it was okay. And the investigation has dragged on. And if and when he's eventually exonerated, if anything, maybe an injustice has been done to him because it wasn't speedy enough, the whole process. And when you add up everything else, going to a marijuana distributor in a state where it's legal, you know, it's set. So I get also people who say, well, you don't want the reaction to be too hysterical. But I think the big picture is now that, and I don't, every time this kind of topic comes up, someone has to bring it up. I'll be the one here, that with the proliferation of media, everyone has a camera in their phone, social media, the internet, etc. Now more than ever, standards of public behavior are strict, even for young people. Where in the past there would have been a little more leeway, primarily because it wouldn't be so distributed, it wouldn't be so known
public,
to everyone,
yeah.
every little transgression. So that I don't think, Molly, you and I are underselling the seriousness here, because it is an accusation followed by small kind of transgressions in terms of his behavior. I don't think, Stephen A., you're being hysterical about it. I think that if you add it all up, he is showing bad judgment. This is an urgent situation for the Cowboys, and it must be addressed.
Look, bottom line is simple, y'all. We live in a way where you're in a bubble. It's public perception. It's not just about her. It's about you being in the public eye and understanding the responsibility that comes along with it. He knows better, period.
Well,
he has to show it.
Clearly, he doesn't know better. One last thing, Max, though, which I just want to be clear
Doesn't
that everyone
care.
knows. If that woman did not want that to happen, we are not okay with that. Then, of course, that is assault. And as far as costing himself dollars, he certainly did that with marketing and advertising money. We'll leave it there.